Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. My name is Alex, and I have not read any of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
And, of course, my name is Nick, and I have read all of Ennis and Dillon's fine work, The Preacher.
The Preacher.
The Preacher.
Today we will be discussing Season 4, Episode 6 of the AMC series titled Lost Apostle. While we will not be spoiling any of the comic and, by extension, any future plotlines of the show, we will be discussing the details of the series through Season 4, Episode 6. So pause this and go catch up before you listen to the rest of this episode. You can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast.com. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter. And you can send feedback to g2tpodcast at gmail.com to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, anything regarding Preacher or our podcast. If you enjoy this show or any other show on the Midwest Podcast Network, please consider heading over to mpn.bz/Patreon and pledge as little as $1 a month to make our network even better. Special thanks to Jason K. and Gojo, who have pledged at the level of $10+ per month. We got some feedback this week.
We did. Did we ever?
Yes. So we got a reply to one of our tweets for Season 4, Episode 3 recap. A man named Tristan Syme. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Said, hey guys, loving your work so far up to Season 2, almost 3. Was super lucky to have a parentheses kind of important question mark and parentheses bit part in Season 4 as Da Cassidy.
Well, yeah. Which is great.
Yeah, so the actor who plays Cassidy's father in the flashback tweeted at us. So I responded back to him, said, crazy to have somebody who acted in the show listening. That's so awesome. Given the circumstances, hopefully Grandma Cassidy eventually let you take his supper. And then I replied with the question that Nick asked during the episode. And said, we were curious, where did they shoot in Australia to portray Ireland? And he replied back saying, judging by how rakishly thin Pontius is, I think he's missed a month of Easter Sunday suppers. Did you guys notice Pontius, or Francis, comes up as meaning small French man? Yet another layer to the onion. Some connection to Port Denis? And then he said, we'll email regarding location, bit of a tale, ... So, no email yet, but hopefully it's forthcoming.
Yes.
Awesome to hear from you, Tristan. So thank you for writing in. Thank you for listening.
So cool.
That's probably the closest we've had to somebody we're talking about interact with our show.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's very cool. Thank you very much, Tristan.
There's so much I want to know about him and the filming, and because like his like prose, the way he tweeted at us suggests that he is Irish. Yeah. Like just the way he writes, and I was like, wow, is he still in character, or like there's so much I want to know. It's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, we'll have to see. If he writes back, he wants to come on the show, we could talk to him for a little bit. Even like a little 15-minute interview. I don't know if he is in Australia or wherever he is in the world.
Yeah, that's what
I have to work out some.
There's a lot I want to know.
Work out some time zone issues, but or we can just talk over email, whatever sure. He would like to do. So, we had another follower named Brian K. tweet at us. He said he responded to this past week's post on Twitter and said, in a prior episode, God destroys the dinosaurs with an asteroid in a fit of rage. In the current episode, Jesus plays asteroids, breaking them down into manageable pieces. In Preacher terms, God is Old Testament vengeance, and Jesus is New Testament mercy.
That's really good.
Yeah, I said that's awesome. A nice little detail. It'll be interesting to see how Jesus reacts to whatever God's plan truly is. Maybe Jesus' second coming will be to step in when God steps down. And Brian says, is Starr mediating the terms Jesus and Hitler will abide by for the apocalypse? Because I figure Jesus will abide by whatever the terms are. And I said, yes, but I think the apocalypse itself is only one part of quote-unquote God's plan that he's putting into action right now. So.
Was this before or after watching the episode?
I had already watched it.
Okay.
But I didn't. Either way,
sure.
I think the questions still stand somewhat. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And then finally on our Discord, we got a bit of a biblical education from, I believe, as we've noted him in the past, our most religious or vocally religious listener. Joseph wrote in, and he had some interesting ideas. He said, regarding Humperdoo, if I recall correctly, Jesus said he was a perfect innocent, and God said he was essential to the plan, throwing out a few possibilities. Number 1, the writers are riffing off the sacrifice of Isaac. The Grail needs to sacrifice a perfect innocent to destroy or save or remake the world. They tried 2,000 years ago, but Jesus foiled the plan by committing adultery. The trope is when you have to sacrifice a virgin for something, but it turns out they're not. Number 2, they're playing with Eden and the tree of knowledge. Because Humperdoo is in a pre-fall state of innocence where he can't even understand right and wrong, he fits whatever the requirements are for God's plan. And then number 3, I don't think they're doing this third thing, but one more possibility is that they're riffing on Abraham and Sodom. If God finds one innocent person on earth, he won't destroy it. Ultimately, though, the bit with the dinosaur suggests that even innocence can torque off God. Yeah, so that was one thing, and interesting that the beginning of this episode begins with God rewatching some of his greatest hits, including the Binding of Isaac.
That's a great way to put it.
Isaac. Yeah,
his greatest hits.
So yeah, I mean, certainly they seem to be. Although in this episode, I think it's played for the fact that God is like reminiscing about a time when his creation still loved him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Definitely. we'll get more to that later. But Joseph, I think, you might be on the right track. We'll certainly
absolutely. I said last week I was really ready to subscribe to theory number 1.
Yeah.
And I even more so after this episode.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that he called that out so precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And then this episode started, and I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah, me too. I was like, wait, what?
Is Joseph working? Joseph, do you work on the show?
He's AMC. He's got AMC Premiere Plus.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
You get it 4 days early instead of 2.
He kickstarted the 4th season.
Yes,
he gets to know.
He's in the right. It's actually this. Joseph is actually
Joe Gogan.
Joe Gogan. Joseph did go on to say, on the subject of the angel and free will, I'm not optimistic that it will end up as something interesting. Cassidy, Tulip, and Jesse have been playing around with the question of what is your true nature and can you change it since season 1, but I'm not confident the show can ultimately handle that question in a satisfying way. What exactly does it say about free will that the angel has enough freedom to fall from heaven for his lover and enough free will not to kill her for a few hours, but not enough free will not to fight her after that? He only has some free will, but it has a limit? That seems muddled to me and not really a fair parallel for the trio wrestling with their natures. I'm open though. Hopefully I'll be pleasantly surprised and they'll stick the landing.
I really like the way that all was phrased. He laid out several examples and kind of set up like what exactly is the parameters of free will. And I'm grappling with the same question.
To me, honestly, that's always been at the core tenet of how humans interact with Christianity. Mm-hmm. There's this kind of duality to free will of like it's enough rope to hang yourself, but not enough to overcome God's fate for you, right?
I think that's eloquently put.
So I think it's certainly, I don't know how much the show is consciously or subconsciously playing with that. It certainly seemed after last week like it was something at the forefront of their mind. But yeah, we'll see how things end up in these last 4 episodes or so.
I wonder if free will, it's tough because I'd like to think Jesse had enough free will where when that second truck cut him off in the middle of the outback, he could have kept driving.
Yeah.
Like free will is almost like bumper bowling in a way where you have the whole lane, but if you stray way off, you're going to get kind of corralled back in. But I guess that's not free will then.
Yeah.
Because you can't continue.
How free is your free will?
Or you could just throw the ball like a madman and hop over to the next lane.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the physics, so to speak, of free will in the show, they kind of play the same way that God's level of control does too. Like we've asked several times, if God wants this done, why doesn't he just do it? And there's the old works in mysterious ways and all that. But, there have to be more effective means of doing away with Jesse and company than what he sets up in this episode.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And is God just a victim of his own theatrical nature where he just has to do something in some big bombastic way?
Maybe. I mean, that could certainly be it. Like, I think, if one of the tenets of the show is that God is really we are made in God's image, and God is subject to the same whims and feelings that we have.
Victim to his own worst impulses.
Yeah, then I think there's like this weird thing where God is trying to do something that makes himself not so apparent.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, like, the idea that we recognize the garbage truck and then the semi last episode is like the point where God is almost breaking his own contract with himself to kind of influence things in as direct a manner as he has prescribed himself.
And the veil gets a lot thinner there too, because we even see Jesse. The first truck, I think he chalks up to coincidence.
Yes.
And so do we.
Yep.
And then the second truck happens, and at the exact same time as Jesse, we all kind of go, wait a minute.
But the thing is like Jesse, we see in this episode, in episode 6, that Jesse has the moment of realization that everything's been a trap when they're on the plane. They're about to get to the lost apostle. It's all been
orchestrated.
I don't think Jesse notices that semi truck is God. I think Jesse's still in the lurch of like. I think it triggers in his brain that he should go back for Eugene, and I think in a way it's God knowing that if he does this thing, he will spur Jesse back on the path that he wants him to be on.
But he just gets incredibly close to pulling back the curtain to reveal the man behind the plan.
Yes.
And it doesn't actually occur until this episode. Yeah.
The weird thing to me is if God wanted Jesse to go back to the saint, I guess we don't quite know the mechanics. Was God aiming Jesse back to Eugene or the saint or both?
I think that the saint is the variable that you need to be paying attention to, because he's not on God's chessboard.
That's true. Yeah, because the thing is when Jesse gets away from the saint, it's like, is he, like, they're both headed to God, and if Jesse would have stayed with the saint, would maybe Jesse had the chance to ask these questions to God and that kind of thing. But
yeah, there's a real good bit from the books that I can't talk about, but I really want to, which is, again, yet another byline of this show. But yeah, I think that paying attention to the saint is important.
Yeah.
And
is he factoring in a way that you feel like is familiar with the books, or are they using him kind of differently? You don't have to. There can be a yes or no.
Yes to all.
Okay.
Yes, his trajectory is starting to really dovetail really closely with what it does in the books, but it's still he's still being used in this different
very
way.
Deus ex machina.
A little bit, but also just different enough that I still don't understand why. There's a lot of the why that I don't get, and the really brilliant thing about this show is it's starting to become about the why is not important. It's just how you choose to react to it. So it's kind of funny. They're kind of making themselves critic proof in a weird way. Well, it's not up to you to ask why. It is what the creator wishes.
Yes. All right. Well, we will talk more about this episode as we recap
as we talk about this episode.
Thank you, everybody, for writing in some very thoughtful stuff.
I absolutely loved everything Joseph threw out there.
Yeah.
That made me so happy that this discussion went beyond the text of the show and actually launched into a full-on like religious examination of what the show is trying to say. And it's awesome because I think it also shows that the show is leaning into it a little bit more than it was before. I really love it. I just love what's coming out of it.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let's do some recapping.
Okay.
We'll talk about the teaser. We open on a retelling of the binding of Isaac, where Abraham is convinced God wants him to sacrifice his only son. We see God intervene, telling Abraham it was only a test and that he had passed. God and Abraham embrace, but we see the story rewind. It turns out God is sitting on a couch watching his greatest hits. He turns off the video to call Hair Star and initiate Phase 2. He also asks about Humberdew, causing Star to lie again. After God hangs up, Star makes a call to initiate Phase 2, consisting of an Australian automobile dropping off the remains of the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand off in New Zealand. We cut back to see God adding a radioactive decal to a model of a large bomb.
Do you think it's a recreation of The Binding of Isaac?
I was kind of curious. I don't know. It's funny because part of me loves the fact that like Abraham just has this like
Jersey
accent that he's using to, like, you know, it's like, what if I know Marky Mark is from Boston, but what
it's in that vein.
Yeah, it's in the same kind of area. Like, what if Marky Mark played Abraham in a retelling of the story? I don't know.
I really like to think that's the actual instance of it.
I think so too.
And God just has like some invisible photo mode from like every video game for the last few years, where he could just like at any point just rewind, and like
he's got the instant replay.
Yes,
he's got clips.
and he can kind of manipulate the space, and this is the angle I want, and I thought it was really hysterical.
Watching Mark Harlick play these like Old Testament God,
it's fantastic.
It's so much fun. It's
My wife was so confused. Again, she sat in for about the first 10 minutes of this episode, and she just was like,
"What is this?
Is this show?" Yeah, she was like, "Who's that guy dressed as God?" I was like, "No, that is God.
That's God."
And she's like, "No." And I'm like, yeah, it is. She
That's
actually
pretty good.
At the recap. So we got the recap again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was playing the recap before the episode, and she was getting up to like get a glass of water or something right when it started, and she just said, "Oh no, not the ass face guy! I forgot about him." Was her direct quote. She is so puzzled by arse face.
I feel like there's a YouTube video out there of like of normal people reacting to Preacher, no context Preacher or something like that.
That would be great.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I should start writing down more of her observations, word for word. It was really good.
That's good. Some of the other tapes that were around God's.
Yeah, I was curious what some of them were. Did you?
Job, Noah.
Is this literally what the labels say?
Yes.
Good.
Sodom and Gomorrah, and then there's one that's labeled Rose Kennedy, which is John F. Kennedy's mother.
Oh, okay.
So I was trying to make that connection there, and maybe our more intelligent listeners would have a better idea, but there was I think in the 50s Rose Kennedy was named as was
she like an incredibly generous
in 1951 person? Pope Pius granted Kennedy the title of Countess in recognition of her exemplary motherhood and many charitable works.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know what
they just wanted to find a modern person that could be potentially on that pedestal.
But I guess the question is like, what recording does God have of Rose Kennedy that he's like?
What conversation did he have with her?
Yeah,
these must be direct one-on-one interactions.
Yeah, I would think so, but I don't know. So if anybody has any real,
that's funny, like a specific event or something. That
I don't know enough about Rose Kennedy, and I did not do a deep dive into this.
That's hilarious.
But yeah.
I was wondering what the other tape said as it zoomed out. I was like, oof, those are probably really funny.
There were a few of them. There were a couple repeats. I think there were like 2 Noah tapes and a couple other things. But
he had more than one talk with Noah.
Yeah, so it was pretty good.
That whole sequence was great, but very funny and also very sad at the same time.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, aw.
God,
poor God.
Yeah. God's getting to that point with his creation of like, or he's like, I guess if the whole context of the series is that God has just given up, this was the last time, and he's just like, I'm done now.
That's what I want to think, but it doesn't feel that way. He still is so involved. And the thing is, he's not.
It doesn't feel like he's single. Like
in the book, he has given up, and he wants to remain anonymous.
He wants to disappear.
Yes,
right?
He wants to stay invisible. He does not want to be found. He does not want to be pursued or tracked, or he just wants to be left alone.
I feel like we've really lost sight of that particular circumstance. Even the stuff that they present in season 1 of like, God is not in heaven, he is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird that as he's become more of a player in the show, I feel distracted from that whole premise. It doesn't feel like he's just going after Jesse. It feels like he's engineering
the apocalypse.
Right. Essentially.
For perhaps some like unknown reason. He has definitely gone like a wild card. Like heaven doesn't know where he's at. Like nobody knows where he is or what he's up to.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems more like now. I shouldn't say it seems like it seems very apparent that the show is just not about that anymore. It's not about God just quitting and being like, you know what, I've had enough of this shit. I'm out of here and I just want to live and just be left alone. He is working towards something. And if his ultimate goal is to undo creation or something so that he can be left alone, it remains yet to be seen.
Yeah.
But it does feel like it's not just a matter of him like
peace out,
just up and walking away and just saying they will sort it out, which is kind of how he leaves it in the book. It's more like, you know what, you're all there, I'm out, do you kind of thing. He abandons it. And in the show, it doesn't feel so much like abandonment, more like he is working toward a conclusion of it, but it's still the end result might be the same, that he can be left alone in peace.
Yeah.
But it's weird because for as all powerful as he does seem, again, if that was the goal, if you just wanted if you wanted to remain anonymous and invisible and just be left alone, just remove your memory from every living thing's existence, and then you'll be fine. But it probably comes back to that same thing where he wants to be missed.
Yeah.
He wants to be wanted.
Yeah, especially given this scene.
Yes, right? He always wants people to be like, oh, if only God would come back and save us all. At least if there's even one person left on Earth who feels that way, it's going to justify his ego.
Maybe he wants to walk Earth and do his work in mysterious ways, but yet just kind of pop in when he wants to, rather than abandon it altogether.
He wants to have the God Road show where he could just drift from town to town and help out in small, meaningful ways and just kind of get a little satisfaction. Like,
which sounds like a great sitcom or something to
with Mark
shop
Harlick.
out. Yes.
The God spinoff.
There's the spinoff. It's just Mark Harlick on the road doing good works, but also being a little bit vengeful in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. Just the ultimate, like, he's the third brother from Supernatural who could just be a cool guy in a cool car.
Yes.
Just roll
but
up.
He always has his really, like, puffy white hair.
His huge beard and hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the portrayal of God in the show is different from the book, and I don't know which one I like more.
Yeah.
I still really like the way he's portrayed in the book, but he is definitely more... he's more of a character in the show.
Yeah.
It seems like there's more gray to him, which doesn't feel right. It feels like he should be pretty black and white. And I think in our minds, God is kind of black and white. So maybe that's how it translates to the book a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
He's kind of rooted in that black and white, but the whole premise of the book and everything throughout it is so gray all the time that it does help to show that you can't quite be that black and white about anything. Which only helps make the book more interesting.
Yeah.
If the idea is that you can only be one or the other, and the book is presenting all these continuous examples of how you don't have to be one or the other, it causes this like dichotomy in your brain where you're just like trying to rectify either one, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the show, it's just not there in quite that depth.
Yeah.
But that is kind of why I liked that scene with the angel. It started to kind of hint at like, you know, all that subtext stuff that we talked about last week. And while I kind of do agree with Joseph, it feels like they're just walking away from the angel. Like, here's this morsel for you to chew on, but it's gone. We're moving on with the plot again.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily bad. I just want more instances like that.
If we maybe had more than 4 seasons where they were thinking about these things, even if we had the 4 seasons we have, but they were seeding that in earlier, then maybe it would have ended up in something. It would have definitely been satisfying.
Yes.
But
and the season does this season has felt like it's kind of been oddly like rushing and then like molasses slow at other times.
Yeah.
And this episode again feels like there's a ton that happens.
Yep.
Like I said to you just before we started recording, I was like, I have really very few notes in my phone from this episode, and you kind of said the same thing. Like it felt a little more
lighter,
sparse. Yeah. And I think there's just so much that happens. I did kind of get engrossed in a lot of it. I stopped taking notes and I was kind of just enjoying, but there also wasn't a lot for me to comment on. It's just like, it is what it is.
There's a lot of A to B in this one.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I agree. It certainly, there's, it feels like they are just moving. Like in a TV show that took a whole season to sit in New Orleans and kind of just mull with the characters.
Yeah.
It feels weird to have so much forward action happening week to week.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's this very like erratic. It's like someone who drives by
someone who's just learning how to drive stick, basically.
Yeah. or just getting up to like 30 miles an hour and then come in and take your foot off the gas. Instead of finding a nice cruising speed, you're just kind of lurching and trying to keep it up. And it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
The episodes kind of do this. They kind of curve up and down with the
it's a sinusoidal.
Yes, this. I call it this, and I do this with my hand.
They curve up and down.
Yes.
A sinusoidal motion is what, or a cyclic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this episode was kind of, I don't know where it was in the arc, I guess. Because last week I loved. And then this week, I don't know. Like, it feels like it was... No, it's not the downward curve. I'm afraid we're going towards another episode I'm not going to like, but we'll see. Because the shit that ends this episode is some of my favorite stuff from the books, and the immediate aftermath is some of my favorite stuff, so I'm really hopeful for episode 7.
All right. Well, we'll get there.
This has been an episode of
director
talk.
We get to see the New Zealand Deputy Prime Minister come back again.
Yeah, it came back full circle.
The fun interplay between the Kiwis and the Aussies is pretty good.
The interplay, and the characterization of Australians and New Zealanders.
Extremely shorthand, like we want to portray these in a show that has largely not been about Australians at all, to kind of like interject these little bits of like how Australian they can be.
Right. What Rogan and Goldberg must think of Australians is hilarious, because it's not really mean, but it is mean at the same time. It's like, you're incredibly simple, but you're nice, and you're well intentioned, and you're polite, but you're still simple.
Yeah.
I love like the fake the weird gang style beef between them. Mm-hmm. Like there's just as the car rolls up, and they're just like, and then it happens again later.
They just like trick on each other.
Yeah.
Like.
I thought for sure it was gonna be some like really lame prank, like they were gonna pull out like silly string or like egg the house or TP it. I was like, this is gonna be something really dorky.
That would have been good. I think that's it for the teaser. Let's go on to Act 1. Tulip and Cassidy have arrived in Australia. Their first stop is the Melbourne Central Police Station. Under the guise of being American police, they demand to speak to the commissioner. They insist that they were part of an undercover operation with Jesse in order to try and get any information they have about Jesse's whereabouts. The commissioner insists that Jesse is dead, and they have his murderer locked up downstairs, and it turns out it's Eugene. Tulip interrogates Eugene and insists Jesse is still alive, but Eugene says he hopes Jesse isn't alive because he'd be even worse off. We cut to the Saint pulling a bullet out of Jesse and using his heat breath to heat up his knife and cauterize Jesse's wound. Tulip and Cass as American police is a lot of fun.
As like not even police, like unnamed American agents of the Americans.
My favorite part is when Cass pulls out his wallet and
covering everything.
I paused it. He's covering everything, but you can see that the card that's showing is a barcode, and it says like it's a library card.
That's awesome. Of course it is.
It's like, and number one, he's not even trying, but number two, they still buy it, and they're like, okay, well, the Americans are here.
And that Cassidy has a library card in the first place. Where?
That was what I was curious about, but his hand is covering it up.
That
mostly.
is awesome.
But it was very good.
Yeah, his American accent is also very entertaining.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not bad.
No,
either. It's pretty good.
He does a good job with.
If I didn't know it was a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude, I'd be like,
all right,
he might be American.
Yeah, I don't know how much else there really is to talk about here. There's some good. I like the you get a little bit about Eugene and kind of Cassidy being sympathetic to the character of Eugene because everybody else just kind of reacts to Eugene on his face, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And the commissioner's kind of like, I think he ate him, basically.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Did you watch it with captions?
I did.
I did too, and I'm upset that I did because I feel like there was a really good like Hot Fuzz style joke of the woman who's like the sergeant or whatever explaining the process.
Yes.
It was really, really, really funny.
I
was like, I know that this is supposed to be played as like total incoherent, just gibberish, but I had the captions on and I was like, well, shit, I ruined this joke for myself.
I did recognize that on the second time through. I was like, oh, this is probably supposed to be completely unintelligible to an American ear.
Yeah. But it actually made sense with the captions. And at the same time, I was like, but the bureaucracy of it is still absurd. But it was just, it was great.
That's good. It worked on two different levels at least.
It was funny. I can't help but feel after this scene, I just like wrote down, goodbye, Eugene, like in all caps, because I feel like the show is done with him. There's nothing left to do. What the hell else is there left to do?
Yeah. Which kind of sucks because it's like that's just the end of Eugene as he's locked up in Australia. Like,
well, Yeah, it does suck because it's so confusing. It's so confusing.
Like, and why did he bother to come along?
Right. And I just, does this circle back around to the free will or the true nature conversation? Is Eugene's true nature just to be this angry? So this is comic book Eugene.
Yeah. Well,
this is the first time I feel like we've seen comic book Eugene, and it just doesn't.
I even question that a little bit too. Like the commissioner's dialogue tells you that it's comic book Eugene, but then Eugene goes around and is like, well, I hope he's dead, because if he's not, then it's going to be a lot worse. Like, I feel like comic book Eugene is just like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Whereas in the show, he still kind of like recognizes that, oh, it's Jesse and he's a preacher, and I thought he was a good person, at least at some point in my life.
At the same time, he fulfilled his vengeance.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So like he thinks, okay, I got my revenge on Jesse by killing him, and if I didn't kill him, I hope he is dead, because if not, he's being tortured by the saint, and that's worse than me just killing him.
Yeah.
It just sounded like somebody trying to be badass, like a badass line, in Eugene's mind. It's like, this will make me sound tough.
It was a play. It was him slotting into the hard-boiled detective story that they were portraying in this act. Right.
He jumped into the scene.
But, yeah.
It just was, I don't know. I'm like, okay, so was Eugene always supposed to be, has he just come full circle back to like an angry kid with a gun, which is what set him down the arse-face path to begin with?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it just, whatever. Like, if the show never brought him back, I'd be kind of be like, oh, all right, yeah. He's chilling in an Australian prison.
We'll have to see.
For some reason, although he'll probably get out on some weird paperwork technicality. They're like, oh, we lost his
We
file.
forgot to submit this form.
Yeah, I guess we got to let him go. Which might honestly be the joke. And he gets released. And
well, the whole thing was they didn't have anything. They didn't have a body. They just had the weapon in his confession. But
there is I just thought there is a chance that a different character's ending from the book might be applied to Eugene. But at the same time, what he did was, it was bad, but it wasn't. I don't know if it applies. Maybe I'll bring this question up in the book spoilers part of the Discord. If any of the gang in the Discord remember to bring this up, and you want to hear what I'm. Although Bruce, he's probably already ahead of me.
Yeah.
As soon as I said that, he probably immediately honed in.
Oh, you mean this?
Yeah, that's probably what he'll do. But anyway, all right.
Yeah, there's the other possibility that, like, is there a chance he'll be heralded as the dude who ended the preacher that went on the rampage in the sod house?
Maybe.
But it doesn't seem like that if he's being kept in prison. So, more heat breath from the Saint.
Yeah.
Our favorite.
When that part happened, I was like, I'm excited to hear Alex's thoughts on the heat breath.
It's just
heat breath.
It's so dumb.
Whatever.
But, all right.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Act 2.
Great.
At Masada, Jesus and Hitler continue negotiating who will receive which souls in the apocalypse. An argument over deathbed conversions almost causes Jesus to call off the apocalypse, but Starr informs them that it's already in progress, so they need to figure out who gets which souls. The Saint wakes Jesse up and they start walking. Turns out the Saint wants to kill God. Jesse tries to stall him and appeal to him, but the Saint takes his insubordination to heart and heads to a nearby house to teach Jesse a lesson. Tulip and Cassidy are racing to the house the Saint was headed towards when they find the Saint and Jesse gone, as well as the family in the home hung up in their dining room. Tulip and Cass speed after Jesse on the freeway, only to come to an abrupt stop where the road ends and the outback begins.
Because that's how it happens.
Yeah. It's just a single dead end sign. It's several feet from where the road stops.
Perfectly maintained highway.
Up until that point.
Till nothing.
Yeah.
Just put a ramp at the end of that thing and just
launch.
Let it happen.
Yeah. I liked the Jesus and Hitler stuff.
The
negotiations are very good.
I did. Again, this is fine to use Hitler for. Like,
yeah, it's as expected. I think
this makes
right?
sense.
Yeah.
The initial tease of them when Starr's on the phone, I think at the very beginning, with the captions on, there was some good dialogue. I just don't remember.
I don't know if I noticed it or not. I must.
They're talking about, like, Jesus brings up something about baptism. He says, "Oh shit." No, it might have been in this scene. He says something about, like, Hitler's like, how did you arrive at these figures? And Jesus is like, it's simple addition. He's talking about like baptisms and something else.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember what the formula was.
It was funny. It was very, very good. And I was like, yeah, that follows. I think Jesus is a much more shrewd negotiator than anyone is prepared to give him credit for, because the way he says that threat about calling it off, I think it's just a tactic.
Oh yeah,
100%. And the way his body language and the way he's like leaning back and playing it like he watched Star Wars and he's like, I'm going to be Han Solo in this it's so funny.
Yeah, I think Star is very much aligned with Hitler. You can see every time he's like down in the negotiations, he's sitting next to Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he thinks as much of Jesus, but I think Jesus, like...
I think they just think he's kind of a figurehead, and like I said that in the previous episodes, he kind of is at this point, but he's a little... He's been paying more attention, I think.
And I think he's holding it back. Like he's playing the role that he's been asked to play in this particular part of the apocalypse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not...
But he's still Jesus, which is great. Like he still believes in the goodness of people,
and that's why part of me like wants to look at all of this, and I don't know what the scene is, but at some point when Jesus realizes that like God is doing all of this to try and kill Jesse, I feel like there's a world where Jesus is like, what are you doing? But even like Jesus doesn't react to the fact that
it's like Dr. Evil and Scott
a little bit. Yeah. But the thing is that going back to the fact that God has abandoned his post, it doesn't feel like Hitler, like it seems like Hitler is aware of the plan.
It's true.
You know? And so is Jesus also aware of that plan? I don't know. Like the way that it's kind of openly, that phase 2 is openly spoken about.
I don't know if Jesus even knows that God abandoned heaven.
That's the weird thing to me, right?
Because we don't know where he's been. Has he been living at Masada? Like just,
I don't think so.
Just
like,
enjoying his time, or has he like? Does God keep him on Earth?
Yeah, I don't
know. These are interesting.
I think there's some weird questions there about it. So there's part of me that wants this like moment where Jesus realizes that God is being very petulant right now, and thinks like these people don't deserve this, right?
Sure.
So
because he's actually spent more time amongst them.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Although Masada is clearly like a hotbed of evil, so if he has been living there, he'd be way more...
He'd be exposed to the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Saint and Jesse.
This was... I liked most of it.
Yeah.
A lot, actually.
Yeah.
Because when the two of them talk in the books, it's very similar, where it's very curt, and they're just like kind of rude to each other because they don't really like each other. The Saint, I think, just thinks Jesse is a cowboy and like doesn't appreciate it. And Jesse definitely does not like the Saint or his methods. But I think Jesse also doesn't necessarily look at him as a person. He's kind of like a thing.
Yeah.
Which helps in the books. It is still better in the books. Like the dialogue is better, but it was entertaining. Like I enjoyed.
Well, and I think you see Jesse, because really before this they haven't interacted for more than like a couple scenes, really.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the most time they really spent together. But you see Jesse trying to figure out the dynamic of what's going on. Like, why are they both there? Why does the Saint need him or want him?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's when they wake up in the morning, right, at the campsite, and he's like, daylight's burning.
Yeah.
Sun's been up for 6 minutes. And he's like, we've got to go and to kill God, right? It's when he says to kill God.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
and
finally.
This is also when Jesse's like standing in the field being like, I'm not going to move.
Right, yeah. I told you to eat shit, which is a great line.
So it's like Jesse's trying to understand why the Saint wants him, which is good. I think we do arrive at that.
Yes. Like finally, some words have been spoken that are like, give us some definitive character direction. Where are they heading?
It's like the Saint ultimately wants Jesse as like an insurance policy or something like that, of like, because the Saint thinks he can kill God with his guns.
I think the Saint might know that God wants Jesse, so he's like this guy is the tracking
he's
device.
The bait.
Yes, exactly. And as long as I walk around with him, which is great and clever, but at the same time I'm like, well, why is the Saint shooting at him all the time? They're like, why is he trying to kill him?
Yeah.
But then I thought, maybe the Saint is just one of those characters where if he wants you dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to disable the car, or we've seen what he can do with his planet-killing guns. So maybe that was the plan all along.
Yeah. Well, and Jesse's the one at the end, I guess, in like a scene or two that kind of arrives at the. Jesse's of the mind of like, your guns aren't going to do shit, but I can because I have the word, is kind of what.
Yeah, and the Saint doesn't really know for sure, I guess. He seems pretty confident that he can shoot through planets and he can kill God with his guns. And that's one of the things that's so interesting about him, is he exists outside of the laws and the rules of both God and the devil. He is kind of this in-between that can't be controlled.
That's what I was going to say, is like, well, if the word doesn't work on the Saint, then why would it necessarily work on God? But if the Saint is really this, you don't have to say things, because I know it's kind of playing at probably what will be a central experience at the end of the season. But
yes and no. But yeah, we'll move on.
We'll get to there.
We got to start really writing down certain things. There's going to be too many things to come back to. We'll never cover it all. But oh well, we tried.
Yeah,
we'll
be all right.
8 seconds.
I think some of it will naturally come up, and
sure,
what doesn't maybe didn't matter in the last place. But
yeah, the two of them together, I really enjoy. Like they're good. It's nice to see somebody partnered with the Saint who is of sort of equal power, if not greater, in a way. And I like watching Jesse try to bide his time and stall and like try to figure out a way out of the situation. There's multiple instances where he kind of tries and just fails, which is great.
Yep.
The thing about the house is confusing. I guess so what the hell was the point? The Saint walks into the house, hangs that family.
So yeah, the thing, and I caught this on the second time through. Jesse explains to the Saint that he wants to ask God why. Right. What does it mean?
Yes. And he says, I'll show you what it means.
Yes. After he finishes, the Saint says, I'll show you what it means. And then he walks over he starts walking towards the house. And it's like, I think the Saint's thesis is that God doesn't give a shit.
There is no why. Like it's just chaos. And
like, I think that's kind of what it plays at, is just that there's no meaning or reason to why anybody dies or why anybody gets quote unquote taken from you. It's that,
I guess, just why I don't know, if the elaborate staging and hanging of them rather than just shooting them all is just to depict the Saint as sadistic and nasty. I don't know. That's what confused me. Like when they pull up to the house and that guy runs out and pukes, which is a beautiful piece of blocking. Yeah. I was like, oh, that was really well done. Yeah. Well timed. I was like, I expected just a massacre. Like he just walked in the door, shot them all, and then walked away. But to go to those lengths, I was like, why? Like, are you just being a dick? Yeah. Like, because then it felt out of character for the Saint, at least as I understand him. Because why go? Then you're really no better than God in his eyes.
I think it served the purpose of getting Jesse to move. That was the point. Like the Saint was like, it was the Saint goading Jesse into continuing on with him.
Oh yeah, for sure. But again, killing them should be enough to get that point across. Why take the time to go through this elaborate? It feels a lot like something that God would do according to the rules and the psychological makeup of God that we're kind of establishing here. That it's just showy. Yeah, and that's not the Saint. No, the Saint should just be like, "I'm gonna kill him. Killed him." You happy about that? And then like, let's keep moving.
True. Yeah. No, I don't know.
That's why it threw me, because I was like, did the Saint? Were they already dead? Did the dad kill the whole family and then hang himself? And the Saint knew it, so he's like, "Let me show you." Like, I legitimately, because it was so big, it was such a big set piece. I was like, "What the what? Where'd the rope come from?" Like, I just was so. All of it is weird, and it just didn't make any sense to me. And I'm probably just making it more complicated than it is. Again, he probably just walked in, hung the family in front of Jesse, and said, "Here you go." But because when we cut to them next, it's just back to the same old like prisoner captive silly dynamic.
Trope.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Did what? Just something. Yeah. There were a lot of moments like this throughout this episode. I actually found myself thinking that it felt choppy. It felt weirdly paced and weirdly directed sometimes. There was even a moment in that scene of dialogue in the field when Jesse gives his like ultimatum to the Saint as he's like lighting up a cigarette. He's like, there's like a single shot of Jesse, and he like says something to the Saint, and then it cuts right to this wide shot that's already like mid dolly in on them, and then Jesse moves the conversation to the next piece, and I was like, that felt really weird. I felt like we should have had another reaction shot of the Saint first before we moved back to just something about the visual language of it was really off, and there were a few moments like that, at least to me, throughout the episode where I was like, this feels like things were cut for time, or that the editor was just like, I don't like that shot, or something about it just didn't feel as tight as...
Maybe they needed some weird reshoots or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Something was definitely kind of off. And the way this sequence progressed to the next was
without any real comment on it from Jesse.
Yes,
right?
there's nothing to bind it together. It just felt like a scenes that didn't flow together.
Yeah.
Just strange.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't really call too much.
Sorry, Lance.
I didn't really notice that myself. Like, I noticed it in like a subconscious level, I think, because I did agree with you in the fact that like it feels like there's missing bits and pieces here. Like, it is a shorthand. They very much have their foot on the gas pedal in a lot of cases, but then there's also these like long and kind of plodding scenes of Tulip making her way through the house and making her way into the RV later on and things like that, where it just not even making her way to the RV. This might just be the fact that I watched it at like 1 a.m. both times, and I like kind of fell asleep a little bit during the part where she was walking up to the RV. But like it just feels like there were these weird moments of like taking a breath when there's also other moments where it's like I'm missing some of the linking pieces.
We have to get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. I certainly something weird going on. I don't necessarily know why though.
Fair.
Yeah, and then they arrive at the Outback. All right, Act 3. A ranger at the Lost Apostle National Park gets assassinated as a flatbed truck carrying a large nuclear device heads in. Jesse does his best to try and take the Saint out with his own guns, but his plans don't work, and he can't lay a finger on the Saint. Tulip and Cassidy regroup at a diner, and we find out that Tulip hasn't read Jesse's letter from before he left. Cassidy reads it to look for a clue as to where Jesse may be, but he does not find any answers. Tulip gets frustrated and goes outside to smoke when she hears a few notes of familiar jazz, which lead her to an RV. The RV is open and nobody answers, so she heads in. Yeah, once again, more Kiwis and, well, I guess it's technically Grail people and Australians at this point.
Yeah, but same reaction to the supposed presence of New Zealanders.
Yes.
So weird.
Yeah.
Is this like a Michigan and Ohio rivalry where
I think so. There's a little bit of it in Flight of the Conchords with I think is Aziz Ansari in that episode? Is he the one that's
He's not Australian though. He's just Aziz.
Yeah.
But he's like he calls them Australians.
Yes.
And they're like, no, we're New Zealanders. He's like, and then they like laugh when he's like, you sound the same, and they're just like
they always take offense to it.
They
right?
do, yeah.
So that's certainly, it seems like it's out there. Just playing out on a national level rather than, obviously we would.
It reminded me of like the weird beef between vampires and werewolves from What We Do in the Shadows. Where you're just like, why? I mean, maybe it's not up to me to ask why you guys don't like each other.
Well,
that's between you.
That's not. I think that's a thing in like Twilight too. I don't know if there's like other like it's there and it's somehow manifested. I don't know what the first instance of vampires and werewolves hating each other is.
It's just so funny in What We Do in the Shadows because it seems like rival like football clubs, but it's like vampires and werewolves like these. And it's goofy. It's really really funny.
That's pretty good. This is where Jesse tries to shoot the Saint with his own guns. They're not loaded for Jesse, apparently.
Yeah, they only work for the Saint.
Yeah.
I think in the books, I don't remember. I feel like somebody does use one that's not him, but I really don't remember. I might be totally making that up. So disregard. I'm trying
to think of
somebody in the Discord will let me know.
I know when Tulip was trying to get them destroyed. Did they do anything? Did she use them then in season 2? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No, not really.
I do love the way, though, that when they don't work and he makes that face And the Saint just holds out his hands.
He puts his hands out one by one again to like take him back.
And then Jesse's like, fine. Just hands him to him. The way he does it is so funny. He's like, well, that didn't work. But he knows, like, there's this really funny chess game going on between them. Like, he can't kill me. I'm trying to get the upper hand on him. Damn, it didn't work. All right. Back to square one.
Back to square one.
Keep moving.
Yeah, it's like it's very much that captor and like that whole trope of like the person continually trying to get out of the circumstance.
Yeah. I can't think of another example of it though for some reason.
There's cases where it's like, you know, very harrowing and like the person knows they're in danger or whatever, but Jesse, because he holds some position of power with the Saint, has the ability to fight back more than most people would.
Right, that's true.
So diner scene was good.
Yeah, really good. Actually, I really loved that the minimal dialogue, actually the like no dialogue while he's reading the letter, but like the acting between the two of them is fantastic.
The kind of knowing glances between both of them, and you can read on Cassidy's face of like it's this weird like mix of disappointment because he's like literally seeing how much love is there between the two of them.
Yes. But at the same time, he looks close to like shedding a tear. Like there's a lot of emotion going
because
across.
It's his friend. They're his friends, you know. So it's that was very, very good.
Joe Gilligan's face is just
a treasure.
It's like it's just this like long. He like reminds me of some kind of dog, and I just can't place it. He's got this. I once heard or read Tim Roth's being described as having like hangdog good looks, and that description has stuck with me for years because I don't know what that means.
No,
but it is the right word.
You know it's right.
And I feel the same way about Joe Gilligan. I'm like, I can look at him and be like, God, what a weird looking. But at the same time, I'm like, he's a handsome. What does he say about Jesus? Handsome bloke or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the same thing. But just the way that his face holds light is fascinating. He's got all these like interesting crags and lines, and just the way he looks while he's reading that letter was just fantastic. And then you've got the biggest contrast in excuse me, in Ruth Nega's face. She has this very pleasing like round face with these big eyes and smooth complexion. And when you contrast the two of them, it is just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and the way the camera is just cross-cutting between the two of them, and her acting too, of just like she's irritated, but she's upset, but she's like vulnerable, and she just is constantly readjusting her posture, and then like kind of craning her head out in that way she does, and making her eyes big, kind of like she's annoyed, but then she like defaults back to like like she wants to know so bad what it says, but at the same time, it's just wow.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Loved it.
I completely agree.
And I feel like he's about to snatch it back from her when she grabs it and like walks out.
Well, and that's the thing.
Like, there's nothing that'll help. And then he's like, well, actually, and then she takes it and like dips out.
Yes.
And I was like, ooh.
She's like, you know what? No, you don't get to.
There's, man, this episode. So this episode is the tipping point. Is Cassidy going to be like Comic Cassidy, or is he going to be Show Cassidy? And this episode is just like it's
teetering in the balance
right there. and his actions in the diner and the plane and what happens after the plane are going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah.
And we just don't know the answer to any of those things yet.
Yeah.
So,
we'll get there.
Yeah, we have to. It's coming up quick.
Yeah. And then I love that A Walk to the Peaks or whatever that jazz piece is continues to be the like telltale sign of God.
The musical cue for God.
God is here.
It's like Yoda's French horn theme coming in.
Yes.
And it's God is just noise, chaos. Is that a real song?
It's
got to be.
It
right?
is. I think we looked into this in the past.
What's it called again? A Walk to the Peak?
I think it's A Walk to the Peaks or A Walk to the Peak. Now my Google is just giving me walking directions to Twin Peaks on Stevenson Highway. A Walk to the Peak Jazz? Yeah.
Doesn't seem as crazy as what we heard in the show.
Yeah, you know,
I just skimmed through 11 minutes of music in 10 seconds.
And it sounded more coherent than what's in the show.
Absolutely.
It could just be like an arrangement of some kind.
That's true, yeah. True. With jazz and like classical music, you might search
it could be all over the place. Yeah. So, But no, it's fun that it still continues to come back.
It was a really eerie scene. Felt like from like another show with
like a
this,
True Detective.
Oh, absolutely. And in her outfit and the way she looked, like 100%. Like you could.
Ruth Negga and Joe Gilgan.
What if?
Season 4 True Detective, yes please.
Oh, it would be so good.
Oh man.
But you could pull this out and drop it into that and base the whole season around that scene and it would work.
That's awesome.
This is like a weird 48-hour film challenge. Like, these are your characters, this is your prop, and this is your setting.
That'd be pretty good.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was fantastic. The atmosphere, I was like, this feels like we slunk into another show.
Yeah.
And
it's this weird otherworldly pocket that God has deposited by this diner in Australia.
Exactly. And the fact that it's this RV is extra eerie. And then, it was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't say anything about the other things that were on the table. I think I wrote them down here somewhere. We see the RV on the table. We see Tulip's car, the church in Anvil, the lifeboat that was in the previous episode, or 2 episodes ago. 2 episodes ago.
2 ago, yeah.
We see the coffin with the chains around it, a plane, a motorcycle. Jesse's there. There's the flatbed truck that's going to carry the nuke. So there's a few things hidden in there.
Itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got excited when I saw him putting that sticker on that nuke.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little like, what the hell is this really going to be? But I'm really interested in the fallout of the situation, both figuratively and literally. But
yeah,
we shall see. All right, Act 4, Cassidy goes off on Sheila the waitress asking for drugs when Sheila recommends some fire retardant out back. Meanwhile, Tulip heads deeper into the RV. She takes a peek at the caged animal inside and recoils, and then notices the man-dog suit and realizes it's the whose RV she's in. She takes note of the models on the table and a postcard for the lost apostle. When she heads out to find Cass, we see God was there watching her. Tulip tells Cass she thinks Jesse is headed to see God at the lost apostle, and they commandeer a plane to head straight to it. Star gets called away from Masada by God to head to Australia, and as he leaves, we see Featherstone working at the Lazarus Coffee incognito. And then Jesse seemingly makes small talk with the saint and mentions that without him or the word, God gets away with everything. Jesse hears the plane approaching and takes it as a sign to get away from the saint. While Cass and Tulip dump fire retardant on the saint, they get low enough to pick up Jesse, and then they pull up to get away.
Very good rescue.
Yeah, great rescue op.
Ping Island rescue op.
Yeah, completely unrehearsed, but yet Jesse knew.
Yeah.
Just speaking more to their connection. He's like, all right, this is Tulip. I gotta get out of the way here. That's pretty good.
It was wonderful.
For something that would feel very convenient, it just kind of was like, okay.
It works.
Somebody else on the subreddit was like, I like how nobody doubts the fact that Tulip can just pilot a plane.
Sure.
It's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, sure. It totally works for me. Yeah, the inspecting the RV was interesting. I'm still really curious what's in those cages.
Me too.
You hear Star hears them over the phone earlier in the episode and was like, oh, is that the guinea pig for something? And God is like, no. And then he deflects and asks about Humperdew. So I don't know what it is, but it seems like it should be something.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have any insider knowledge about it?
No, not really.
No? Okay.
No.
It's interesting to me that Tulip isn't quite with it enough to realize, like, I feel like if she and Cassidy were in that RV together, the two of them maybe could have put together the fact that everything was a setup before getting into the plane.
Perhaps.
But it takes Jesse seeing the postcard for it to click for everybody, basically.
But I'm sure the rush of, like, just excitement over getting a real clue.
A morsel, yeah. That's true. Yeah, because they are hot on his trail trying to find him.
Yeah.
Star getting called away from Masada, and then he says something.
I'll be right back.
Well, he says he'll be right back, but then Star warns Hoover too after he gets out of the elevator. He's like, when I get back, I'll be quite attractive. And then Hoover 2 is just kind of like, I'm looking forward to it. Or I don't know exactly what he said, but it's like, okay.
Star definitely has a crush on Hoover 2.
Yeah, it's kind of and Hoover 2 kind of does too. I think there's something there at least.
I love that line. I'm going to Australia. I'll be right back. What? No, you won't.
He's got a Concorde jet or something.
Exactly. He can shoot through the planet, and
yeah,
he has one of those too.
Yep. And then the escape from the Saint was quite good, as we noted.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know that there's a whole lot else to say.
I loved the conversation between him and Cassidy. Is that the next act?
Yes.
I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the beginning of Act 5.
Because then we got the Saints angry, screaming at the heavens.
Yeah! His gaudy moment.
Yeah.
As he screams as it cuts away.
Yes.
All right, we'll break into Act 5. We're going to chunk it out a little bit because it is kind of big. Jesse says hey to everyone on the plane and realizes that Tulip is mad at him for leaving. He also realizes that she never read his letter, but Cass says she'll come around. Jesse explains that they have a stop to make, and Cassidy says they know. He demands an explanation for the Big Lebowski from God. I'm glad that came back. Yet another. It's been like they touch on it like once per season almost. And
it felt so completely earned and perfect.
Absolutely. It's very, very good. They come back to the plane again later, so we'll get to that. 2 Grail men load plutonium into a plutonium fissile device, a 25 kiloton atomic bomb, when an Australian hiker walks up. They claim to be from New Zealand, but the Aussie can't be fooled, so they shoot and kill him. That Aussie guy was great.
It was fantastic.
So good. I forget what he said. He says, "You take me for a drongo," which I don't know what that means, but it sounds fantastic.
So full of Australian slang. This episode is just...
Yeah,
it's like they brought on a consultant in the writing room and was like, if you could give me the most like...
We have 4 lines for this guy.
Outrageous Australian slang.
Pack it in.
Well, there are some too with the
security guards.
Yeah, the park ranger guy. Yeah. And then I feel like the New Zealand guys had something as well that was like some really funny slang that was specific to name calling, basically.
And that's the thing is, like, as an outsider, I feel like that's how New Zealanders and Australians talk, but I don't know, like, if there's anybody here who is from either of those areas that could chime in and be like, is this how Australians and New Zealanders actually talk with each other?
I'm sure regionally, absolutely. It'd be like someone living, born and bred in Australia thinking all Americans are like people from the South.
Yeah. That's true.
There
will be spots that are probably like that.
That
right?
accent and that language does absolutely exist, but it's just not. It's not the entire continent of Australia like this show is presenting.
That's pretty good.
I mean, Nick Cave is Australian, and
that's true.
He's very eloquent.
Yes, absolutely, he is.
As we have witnessed in person.
We don't take him for a drongo.
No way.
Star informs God that Phase 2 is ready, and God takes the opportunity to ask about Humperdew once again. Star realizes that God is aware that he's being lied to, and the dingo finds its way to Star, seemingly as punishment for him crossing God. The dingo is forcefully mauling at Star's crotch.
Mm-hmm.
Star getting disfigured in some way once again.
Yeah, that does happen in the books.
Okay.
Via dog. Not
a dingo.
Not at this same instance.
Okay.
At all, but I was like, okay.
Not at the hands of God either?
No.
Okay.
Well, not directly. No, I don't think
fair.
so.
Okay.
God, like I said, in the books, I think God is less involved, and if he is, the book never goes out of its way to say like this was God all along.
Okay.
This scene was really funny because God says like, God willing, and like, oh God, a couple times. Like he uses his own name in like the way we do, which is really hilarious to me.
Yeah. I still really baffled at the whole Humperdew thing. I wonder if they're going to find the Humperdew.
Oh, they absolutely will before the end of the season.
It'll need to. He needs to be there.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Will God be the one that finds Humperdew because he can? Maybe, who knows?
That is weird. Does God really not know where he is, and if so, why?
But it seems like I think at this point we learned that God at least knows that he didn't have Humperdew, right?
Oh, 100%.
But I think. To me, I feel like God is probably able to find Humperdew pretty immediately, is my guess. If he tried.
And you might have him.
So, yeah, that's true. He could already have him, too.
Yeah, he's not in the crate. That's for sure.
No, he's no.
Tulip would know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does kind of a fun twist with, again, just when I think I start to pin down how powerful and omniscient and everything that God is, the show kind of makes me question it again. Like, oh, wait, does he?
Yeah.
If he knew Star was lying all along, is it because he's all-knowing or because he's that good at reading people? Although Star was doing a very bad job of coming up with excuses.
Yeah.
It took him to wax his feet.
It's very obvious that Star is lying. But I think the thing is that God repeatedly asking about him in this way and also using it to deflect from some questions.
That's true.
I think was a way. It was him controlling Star in some way.
Yeah, he might just God might be the ultimate poker player. He just isn't necessarily all-knowing, but I don't know. The question remains. I like it though. I like still not having a definitive answer.
Yeah,
it's
and
fun.
Who knows if he will lay all of his cards out on the table.
I love that he still had that coffee mug.
It's the same mug.
Was that a signal of the coming destruction? Maybe.
Quite potentially. That's his. Well, I mean,
it's his morning
he was
cup.
admiring the day when he first drank from it back with the dinosaurs.
That's true.
So
he didn't plan on exterminating all of them.
It just happened. So, but maybe that's what it is now. All right, and then my final little chunk here for Act 5. As they draw closer to the Lost Apostle, Jesse notices the postcard, which tips everyone off to the fact that they're headed into a trap. Tulip tries to get away, but not before God can trigger the atomic bomb. The plane gets tossed about, and the door flies off, causing Jesse to fly out of the plane. Cassidy manages to catch him, but his arm starts burning in the sunlight outside of the plane. Jesse tries to get Cassidy to let him go and tells Cassidy to tell Tulip to read the letter, but Cassidy doesn't want to let go, so Jesse forces Cassidy to let him go by using the word. Tulip and Cassidy mourn as Jesse falls to the earth. As we saw in the flash forward, he hits the ground with a large mushroom cloud in the distance near the Lost Apostle, and we zoom in on a very bruised eye and a seemingly dead Jesse. Was the mushroom cloud what you were referring to? Yeah. Interesting.
You guys made me question whether or not I saw it. I knew it was there, and I was like, well, so I knew that the moment when Jesse falls out of the plane is in the aftermath of an atomic blast. Okay. And so when the episode started and I saw him falling, I was like, and then I looked, I was like, oh, that's got to be the aftermath of the blast, right? And then you guys were like, I didn't see anything, and I was like, did I imagine an entire mushroom cloud?
It's interesting. It just it's so quiet that I don't even.
You didn't equate it to a.
It didn't. Yeah,
to like a nuclear detonation.
It could have just been clouds in the distance, or I was just. I feel like I was mostly just focused on the fact that like somebody's falling from the ground. Mm-hmm. Like that's what pulled my attention enough,
which is great, honestly. Yeah. Like that's awesome that it slipped by.
Yeah. I
forgot to mention how much I absolutely loved. Again, the chemistry between the three stars is off the charts, as we've noted since season 1. But I absolutely adored the initial conversation between Cass and Jess.
Yeah.
When Jesse's like, "Hey," and Cassie's like, "What?
Yeah.
What? Hey. Oh, hey!" And he just like seems so happy to see him, and just got that big Cassidy grin. It was so funny. I was like, "This is absolutely perfect."
There was also,
and then Tulip doesn't say anything. She said, "Hey." Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and then the thing is when Cassidy mentions the Big Lebowski and he and Jesse have a laugh about it, and then it cuts to Tulip and you see her smirking. Yes. She's certainly listening, and
that is the way the two of them are in the books for most of it, and just like can nonstop laughing together, and it's so good.
Yeah,
that was wonderful.
That's pretty good. I did have a line written down here that I forgot to mention, but the quote from Star is, "Physical attractiveness has always been a calling card for me."
Yeah, that's right. It was so good.
What he says to God.
Like, when?
Yeah.
Well, where do you want to start with all this?
I don't really know. I don't know how much I really want to talk about, since we're going to see literal fallout soon, but like it I don't really know where it goes from here. I'm kind of I don't know. I'm kind of leaving.
It's a big happening.
Yeah. And so I guess the thing that kind of I reacted after it was the fact that the little flash forward that we get at the beginning of the season seems to imply that like Cass and Tulip are out on their own back in the Middle East. And then they show Jesse falling from the plane afterwards. But clearly these weren't two. Like, I think the scene with Cass and Tulip in the hotel room is going to come later. So that kind of threw me for at least a little bit of a loop, you know. I guess I was more or less surprised that Tulip and Cassidy made it to Australia at all, because I wasn't really expecting that to happen. And so I like that it did. We got a lot of nice moments with everybody. But Jesse falling out of that plane, like, I don't really see how he survives this one without some kind of divine intervention.
Sure.
But also, you know, what is the literal fallout of a 25 kiloton nuke going off in the Australian outback?
Yeah.
Is there any other than the fact that, like, it seems like they're triggering World War III, right? Is kind of the idea.
I think it is part of it's the end part of phase 2.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would bother trying to tell that Australian that they were New Zealanders if he was going to be well within the
yeah, well, no, and that's the thing. It's like, was Star in that blast? Was, I guess that's the main question. It's like, was Star there?
Who's left?
Yeah, who's left? Did God protect him from it? I guess that's possible, but
yeah. So the bomb does happen in the books. It does not happen like this at all.
It does not cause... Does it cause the plane to...
Yes.
Okay.
But it's more like the EMP from it, I think, is what... I think. I'm trying to remember now. The show does a very weird job of, like, explaining their proximity to the blast, because it seems like they're flying through the flames of it, and then suddenly they're miles away, because I'm no physicist.
Jesse drops out. Like,
it's way out there.
Yeah.
But those blasts, I think, are pretty big. So they'd have to be like a solid, like, I feel like 15 miles away or something.
And that's the weird thing about it, is that cloud, like, that cloud is very unassuming to me. It's not like, I feel like when we see videos of nuclear mushroom clouds, like, that cloud that they show behind Jesse as he falls is very much feels like something that's like a half an hour later, or like, I don't know, like,
not the immediate.
Yeah, so that was partly that.
Yeah, they do a weird job of explaining in the books. It makes more sense. You know, maybe it's not the EMP, because Cass and Tulip definitely keep flying.
How is the lost apostle still standing?
Right.
How is that? Like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, nothing happens that way in the book, and like, God does not trigger it. It's different. Okay. So I'm a little disappointed, because the nuclear blast and everything that surrounds it in the book is probably my favorite single piece of the book. And there is a ton missing, which I get, budgetary reasons and whatnot, but it is like the number one conflict that I was looking forward to. And when this season started and I saw that, I was like, are you kidding me? They're going to do it.
They're going to do it.
And they did, but they didn't. And so I would be more disappointed if the show hadn't been consistently kind of stepping down from my expectations, or at least what I wanted, or what I thought I wanted. And again, it's not necessarily bad. I think this is all going to be in service of the show, but anybody who's read the books knows what I mean. Like, that conflict around the blast, or leading up to it, is the shit. It is so good. It is probably my single favorite part of Preacher, and it lasts for like a couple issues, and it's just the best. Everything builds. It takes time to build up to it. That's the thing. Like, it in this episode kind of rushes to it, and I did really like the sequence of Jesse falling out of the plane and Cassidy catching him. Like, that's remarkably close to exactly how it goes down in the book. But in the book, it is like edge of your seat, like, oh my god, like, what is going to happen? And in the show, they did a good job of building the tension of it, and like, you're like, oh, you know, how did you feel when he flies out of the plane and Cassie's holding him and his arm starts burning? Like, where were you at in that moment?
I don't know. Like, I feel like this is where I get robbed by flash forwards and why I don't necessarily love them that much, because I knew he was going to end up on the ground. You know?
That's true. That's good. I didn't even think about that because I'm already so spoiled by it all.
That's part of what I didn't love about some of the end of Breaking Bad. You know, they started giving you glimpses. They like to drop teases and things ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And I think they did a good job with the plane. I won't spoil anything. They did a good job with the plane in that one. Like, that whole season kind of teases up to this plane
that's true.
disaster.
Okay.
And
yeah. Okay.
That worked well. But when they started showing Walter at a certain age in a diner,
yes,
that type of stuff is when I'm kind of okay, now my head is doing the work to try and put the pieces together of how we get there.
And you better hope that all the material leading up to it is good enough that it makes it all fine.
Exactly.
That you're okay, it's not so much about the destination but the journey.
So I feel like right now my feelings about this whole moment are really suspended on what's going to come afterwards.
Okay, that's fair.
Because the stakes of the character moment between Jesse and Cassidy, the idea that Jesse has to use the word to get Cassidy to let him go, mm-hmm. I think is all wonderful.
Yeah.
I thought it was very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't feel as though there was any point in time where Jesse was getting back into that plane, because I figured that was where he was going to hit the ground.
Sure.
So
I think that they may have thought, and obviously it didn't work for you, but they may have thought that all you know is Jesse falls out of a plane. And so maybe the first time they picked him up with the Saint, you were going to think for a minute, like the Hot Tub Time Machine thing, oh, is this when he falls out of the plane?
Yeah.
Does the Saint shoot it down and he falls out? Well, no, he got away.
Yeah.
And maybe if they'd had one more head fake, you would have been like, maybe this isn't it.
Yeah.
But obviously, a nuclear blast is pretty that's a big deal. Oh, all right.
Those pieces come together.
The interesting part is Jesse seems to look at the bolts flying out and the panels ripping away, and he seems to think okay, God is going to let them go if I let go. God wants me. Because he's kind of you see him reacting to those elements happening. And so I think in Jesse's mind, it was a calculated, okay, God wants me.
If I let go, then I will save them.
Yes.
Interesting. I didn't put that together at all, but that makes a lot more sense now that you're saying that.
And in the book, it's not really about that, because, like I said, God doesn't trigger it.
Yeah.
And it's just a thing that happens. And I think
it's a self-sacrifice.
I think it's a self-sacrifice because Cassidy needs to be inside. Maybe it's a weight thing. There is a reason in the books why he's hanging and Cassie's arm starts burning, and he's like, I'm not going to let go. And then Jesse's like, let me go. And, I mean, man, whew. Oh, this is my Space Seed moment now. See, now you already know that this happens. When it happens in the book, when it comes up on you, it is so insane.
Yeah.
It's so devastating because it's just this incredible moment. And it's it's like Han getting frozen in carbonite in Empire. If you had never seen Star Wars and you were in the theater in 1980 and you saw that shit happen, could you imagine? The reactions of people in the theater must have been insane because you're you did not just do that. And that's the way this moment is in the book. It is crazy. And it happens earlier than you would think. It's not super early, but like I said, when it happens, you're like, what?
Well, we're just about halfway, a little more than halfway through the season too, right? So it's I don't know how this is all going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you where I think it could potentially be headed in a second. I don't know. But,
okay.
I
don't know where it's going to play out. I can tell you that. So
that's
maybe
fair.
Because based on how the bomb is triggered, I don't know what the hell is going to happen after, because that is so different and it directly impacts what happens after in the book that I don't know where the hell they're going. So if that doesn't probably mean anything to anybody who hasn't read the book, but I am totally spinning from it because it's just so different.
Well, the thing, I guess the pieces that I'm playing with in my head here, and I guess here's what I'll do. If anybody right now, we're basically towards the end of our episode anyway.
Yeah.
If anybody right now doesn't want to hear any errant speculation about what's going to happen, if you don't really enjoy that part of the show, then please tune out now, because I'm gonna start trying to play with some puzzle pieces in my head that may or may not lead us towards something that resembles what's going to happen in the next episode. I don't know. I haven't watched any Next Time Ons. I don't know anything really further about what's going to come. So thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. But so right now in my head, I'm like, okay, we know Jesse ends up back alive. Yep. He's going to have an eye patch on for some reason. Because he's got a black eye right now, kind of. I don't know. I mean, I guess if your face hits the ground that hard, then yeah, you'd probably have a black eye. At least. You still had an eye.
Right.
But like, it feels to me like this is God's gambit to get Jesse on his turf, potentially without Genesis, to be like, get the fuck away from me. Like, I don't know if Jesse literally dies and maybe loses Genesis, but also then this gives God the opportunity to be like, Jesse Custer, I don't want to be found. I don't have to answer to you. Fuck off. And then maybe brings him back to life because he wants to show how merciful he really is.
You are so much closer than you would think.
Like, I think that's where I see things being manipulated towards right now.
Okay. Do you want me to comment on that at all? Other than what I just said?
I don't know. I don't know if do you feel like you can say anything that doesn't necessarily tip any hands?
Well, I don't know, because like I said, I know where it goes in the books.
Yeah. And
I feel like the show is, I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what, that makes me feel better about the show then, that's where
my mind is, my mind is playing with right now.
Yeah, that's good then.
I think it's there. And I think some of it is informed from a little bit about what we talk about, but it's not necessarily like, I don't, like, I feel like when I came to that conclusion, I'm kind of playing with what the show has presented with me rather than anything that you've imparted on me with our discussions on the show, on this podcast show. Not show.
I just realized something that I wanted to happen that I didn't think was going to happen is actually probably going to happen right at the beginning of the next episode.
Okay.
If they get right into what happens to Jesse. Ooh. Okay. Might get something pretty good that I want.
I guess there's the other thing that we could theoretically be playing with is whether or not Tulip and Cassidy are going to now proceed thinking Jesse's dead. Like, I think that's what I feel like that's what the beginning of the season kind of brings about. Like, I don't think Tulip would be accepting Cassidy's love necessarily without thinking Jesse's dead.
Yeah, that's a good assessment. And I think she based on the look on her face as they're flying away, I think she thinks he's dead.
She thinks he's gone, yeah. So,
one thing I forgot to say before we made this little break towards these pseudo spoilers. So God goes like full in terms of appearance, he goes like full comic book God for a second when he claps and like the blast goes off.
Yeah.
And his eyes turn like all white and he gets like illuminated in all this yellow light. Do you remember the panel I showed you of what God looks like in the books?
Yep.
It looked almost exactly like that, and that was awesome.
That's very good.
I thought that was so sweet. And I was like, this I sort of understand, that there's a struggle for comic book fans or fans of anything that gets adapted, really, but especially something visual like comic books. When your characters that you like make it to some sort of big screen or TV, they most of the time they shy away from the actual appearance. They try to make it more realistic and more grounded for whatever reason. And sometimes it works and it suits the characters, and sometimes it doesn't, and you're just left wondering why. Yeah. Why not just
why
go
didn't
for
you
it?
lean into it?
Right, and there's a reason I think that we, at least in our circle of friends, kind of enjoyed Aquaman for the most part, because it leans into it hard. Yeah. And it's like, hey man, this is an Aquaman movie. Yeah. Watch it. And sometimes with the show, I wondered, like, okay, why didn't they make God look more like he does in the books? Because it's sweet. He doesn't really show up that much. You don't really see him like full on, like as a person on the panel. But when you do, he looks pretty much like that, and it's so cool. And you're like, you know what? That's how you can make God look like God, because he doesn't look like a man. He looks like God. And then, they've got the whole Mark Harlock thing going, and I've been enjoying it for sure. No doubt. Listen to any episode of this podcast where we talk about Mark Harlock. It's fantastic, but I always kind of was like, it's kind of a shame he doesn't appear like that once in a while. And this was a good way to sneak it in there for a beat. Because as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, that's awesome.
That's really
loved
cool.
it. But I get that you can't get the same emotion out of a performance and the same nuance without eyes. Like, that's the biggest thing. There's a reason that people's eyes are always visible in these comic book costumes and everything. And they take their helmets off and their masks off because you need eyes to connect and to emote. Unless something really special is happening, in which case you can get away with it.
I have to imagine, especially one of the things you've continually brought up is Jesse using the word, not having his kind of red eyes. Like, I
still miss that.
I know you do, okay. But I also feel like they probably must have tried it.
Maybe.
You know? Like, they had to have at least tried that at some point and been like, this maybe doesn't work for this reason. Maybe we don't have enough money to do it the way that we want to do it. Maybe we don't.
Yeah, maybe. I would find that remarkably hard to believe. I guarantee there's someone out there who has made an After Effects tutorial on how to do that, and it looks great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just is so much more effective than the weird vibration.
Even if they like did it, you would think there would be a way that they could do it with like contacts or something that would be interesting. And maybe
they could absolutely do it.
So,
I mean, there's, look back to characters on like Buffy and stuff. They had weird eyes.
Yeah. True.
I do kind of like, though, that when God sort of yells at Star, don't ever cross me again. It's in basically the same voice. It sounds like the word, The word, which is kind of a neat little detail.
The only other thing that I did want to say about God, there's a moment there after like the plane is like turned away and starting to get torn apart where he's like doing this little like kind of like
weird
jiggish type dance thing, and that was also very entertaining. But
yeah, that was weird. I didn't know what to make of that.
Yeah. Anyway, we will I think we'll come back next week, have more thoughts on what went down. I might do a little bit of editing of that ending there just to kind of maybe hide some things a little bit, or
you probably
whatever.
Should.
We'll see. I'll see what I can do, but maybe fold some of the God appearance talk back up before it. Who knows?
Okay.
However you're hearing this is how I intended you to hear it.
Oh boy, somebody's playing God with this podcast up in here.
Anyway, once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. We're also on TV Time, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. We are also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can email us at g2tpodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Preacher or our podcast. The Midwest Podcast Network has other shows about video games, horror movies, FX's The Alienist, and HBO's Westworld. Find out more about these shows as well as how to support the network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Our theme music is the song All In by The Red Thread, and it is being used under a non-commercial Creative Commons license. That's all for this episode of Gone to Texas. We can't wait to see what next week's episode of Preacher brings, but until then, go forth and speak the good word.